Hey gang, so I have a normal pattern making exercise that I put my classes through, but I noticed with the new version of Illustrator CC that one of their starting tutorials is on making a pattern. So I thought, let's just see how they do it because it might be a little bit different and new in this new version of Creative Cloud. So I went ahead and said try it, and you'll see when you do that you can download some resources. So make sure you get these, or you can get them from the modules. Actually, the cheat sheet is kind of fun because it's a bunch of shortcuts for Illustrator. Okay, so what you're going to do, I also provided you with the web page for this, which you could get just by Googling. So you can see it's up here. So that will be your directions for this one. And you want to open the template that Illustrator provided you with. And that's what we're going to work with. And I'm going to do my best to just kind of remember the order of these things. So this provides you with sort of a few different artboards on here. You have a practice image area, you have a place where you can get inspiration, and then you have areas where you'll be making some actual patterns in here. Now you could normally just make these on the regular artboard. If you look, you'll notice they've changed your Essentials workspace to painting, and you want to make sure you can find your swatches here and your layers. So mine are down here. Those are the most important things for this demo. And you'll notice right now this is saying it's on a layer that's locked, so you're going to be frustrated if you try to work with that layer first. Now the very first thing we're going to do is we're just going to apply a pattern that has already been created. So just go ahead, click on this pink cactus. Make sure that your foreground color is selected, so it's in front. That's what we're going to fill, and then click on this pattern to fill your cactus with it. You'll notice in your layers we've automatically been put on the patterns layer that does not have a lock on it too. Now we're going to learn a new tool along with this. You're learning the blob brush, and that's buried right under here with the paintbrush tool. Now the blob brush is interesting because it actually paints objects. So you want to go ahead and click on this default colors, and if you want to choose a different color you can, although the instructions say to just go ahead and make it your pattern in black. So I'll just paint in black, I guess. Double click on this tool and you can change the size here. According to the demo they say to use a 7-point size brush. Now paint whatever object you want. So these are some ideas, right? So I'll just do like a little swirly, like that. And if it's not centered, feel free to select it and center it if you want to. One thing you are going to notice, let me Command plus as I zoom in on this, the blob brush creates objects. You'll see there's actually paths all around it. Whereas the regular brush, if I were to paint with it, you see the path is the line here, whereas with the blob brush the path goes around it. So those are important differences to note. Okay, some other options when you're working on these, when you double click, you're going to see there's options in terms of fidelity. That means, do you want Illustrator to help smooth your stroke? It's set in the middle by default, and mine did smooth quite a bit. You might have noticed. If you want it to be super accurate to your drawing, put it over here to the left. I kind of like it right where it's at. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this line. So this object with the blob brush, via the instructions, you should be able to just select it and click and drag it into swatches. My Illustrator's acting weird, so it's quitting when I do that. So let me try something else. If you guys are having the same problems I am, I think that maybe in objects you can say pattern and make. And there it is in your swatches. And you can say OK. And in here you can kind of see it's previewing your pattern. You could name it. You could say the type of grid you want it to repeat on. And when you do this, you'll see that it's going to change how these are repeated, how close they are, how far they are. I kind of like this one. You can also use a lot of these different options if you want overlap. I guess it's not too much in making much of a difference in this one. Brick offset, how much? That looks good. Copies, how many? Show tile edge, show swatch bounds. So there's all these options you can kind of play with. You can also still work with this object. So if you wanted to change the color of it, let's say, maybe I want it to be red. You could do that. Okay, and then when you're done with that, you could just hit this done. And now that swatch is in your swatch area. Now let me zoom out a little bit. You can also use some of the objects they've already created, so you can add these as patterns too. You should be able to just drag them into swatches. I forgot, if you actually just hit this new swatch area, it's just going to save the color, so don't do that. You can either say object, pattern, make, or if you can drag it straight into swatches, it should make your pattern automatically. So I have to do it this way. And then you can kind of play with editing how this looks. So I'm just going to go ahead and say done on all these. And here we can draw our own patterns again. So I guess you could do it with the pen tool, a brush, blob brush. I'll just go ahead and stick with the blob brush since that's what we're doing so far. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in because I think we're supposed to make multiple things within this area, kind of like this did. And this is just kind of giving you the outline for the types of bricks you can make. Here we go. So I think that's okay. Just use the selection tool, click and drag across one, and add it to the swatches. If you can drag it straight in, drag it straight in. Otherwise, say object, pattern, make, and make sure you select the same kind of pattern that this was in. So this one said grid and it was a square. So we're just going to say done. And this one's a hex, object, pattern, make. Okay. And we'll say hex by column. Done. Object, pattern, make. And this one was a brick. Like this. And so I'm just going to say, okay, done. Okay, so now what we can do is use all these patterns we've created and we can work with them in the picture over here. Okay. Now, oh, it looks like I accidentally went back, turned my cactus to my default black and white. But anyway, the other thing you should know is that you can double click in any of these patterns and you can edit them again. Right, so I have that same dialog box that comes up once I've clicked on them. So for instance, let's say I want this pattern in my cactus. Put my fill on the front, take my stroke off. Let's say I want that, but I want it to be green. You can go in here and just click on these guys. You can even click on a few of them if you want to. Say done. And look, it's automatically applied to my cactus. So you can kind of play with those and basically just fill in all these areas with a pattern. Let's pretend I've applied patterns to all of these. Let's say File, Save As, and just put your name under dash patterns.ai and save it. And that's what you'll submit to me in Malima.